So you're looking to cut through the noise and really uh, understand how to manage stress, right?
Hmm.
Get the crucial info without feeling like you're completely drowning in it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here today.
Yeah, consider this your, let's say, streamlined guide to effective stress reduction. We've really dived deep into this document, Reduce Stress Effectively, to pull out the core insights for you.
We're going to break down what actually happens in your body when stress hits, maybe uncover the real culprits behind it, and, well, it might surprise you,
It often does.
and equip you with some hands-on techniques, things like easing tension, quieting your mind, and, navigating stress better at work, at home, even in relationships.
Definitely. Now, it's worth mentioning the original document does have a disclaimer. It notes that info in areas like, say, law or finance changes rapidly.
Right.
And for specific situations, you should always talk to a professional. What we're focusing on here are the general principles for understanding and managing stress, just as they're laid out in this resource.
Okay, perfect. So let's get right into it then. When we feel stressed, what exactly is going on inside us? What's the mechanism?
Well, the document explains that your body's immediate reaction to stress is actually an attempt to restore balance. It's a natural, kind of built-in system trying to get things back to an even keel.
But sometimes that very natural reaction can cause more problems, can't it? Down the line.
Precisely, yeah. While the initial response is meant to help, if that stress becomes chronic, this constant state of, like, high alert can actually become unhealthy.
How so?
While different bodily systems can end up working against each other. And interestingly, the document points out that some of the very first signs might even be visible.
Visible. Like what might we actually see?
Things like skin flare-ups or irritations, even developing allergies or certain autoimmune responses can sometimes be early indicators that your body's reacting to underlying stress. It's like your system is sending out signals.
Hmm. And this whole process, the body trying to maintain stability through change, is at what they call allostasis.
Exactly that. Allostasis is that active process where your body adapts. It expends energy to maintain internal balance or homeostasis when facing stressors. Think of it as your body actively, working to cope.
So our bodies are generally pretty good at handling, like, short bursts of stress.
They really are quite resilient. But the key takeaway here, and the document stresses this, is that prolonged stress or unmanaged stress, it can eventually overwhelm those coping mechanisms.
Right.
The body just can't sustain that high level of alert forever.
Okay, so we've got a picture of how our bodies respond. Now let's dig into the big question. Where does stress actually come from? Because the document kind of throws a curveball here, doesn't it?
It really does. We often just assume stress comes purely from external stuff.
Yeah.
A tough boss, money worries, arguments.
Yeah, the usual suspects.
Exactly. And while those are definitely factors, this document highlights something crucial. Our own internal landscape plays a massive role, a really massive role.
How does that work? What's the key insight there?
It really boils down to our perception of events, how we interpret what's happening around us. That has a huge impact on our stress levels.
Yeah.
And the document also mentions our attachment to routines. How comfortable we are with things staying the same. Even seemingly small disruptions to what we see as normal can trigger a stress response.
So it's not just the stressful thing itself, but our take on it, our interpretation.
Absolutely. The document puts it very clearly. Stressful thinking leads to stressful feeling. Our worries, our fears, that little voice inside running negative commentary, those mental patterns can actually generate stress from within.
Wow.
Think about it this way. Your brain doesn't always differentiate between a real physical threat and one that's just created by thought. Both can trigger the same physiological stress response.
Okay.
Recognizing that is really the first step to getting some control.
That really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? So if
Yeah.
we're constantly dwelling on worst-case scenarios, we're essentially making our own stress.
In a way, yes, precisely. And the document goes further, explaining that if we get stuck in habitual negative thinking patterns, it can actually weaken our body's overall ability to cope with any stress. It's like we're constantly priming the pump for a negative reaction.
Like, this is really key. So if we want to get a handle on our stress, where do we even start? How do we begin to take that control?
The document is quite clear here. It emphasizes that the very first step, really the foundational step, is identifying the primary sources of stress in your own life. You can't manage something effectively if you haven't really acknowledged and understood it first.
Right. Makes sense. And what are some of the common signs, maybe the red flags, that our stress levels are getting too high? The document lists quite a few.
It does. You should watch out for things like persistent feelings of nervousness, maybe finding yourself withdrawing from social situations more,
Mm-hmm.
constant fatigue, that feeling of being tired all the time, recurring headaches, perhaps an increased reliance on things like alcohol or smoking.
Or other unhealthy habits, maybe.
Exactly. Or unhealthy habits,
Mm.
noticeable shifts in weight or appetite, up or down, restless sleep, poor quality sleep. And even those moments where your emotional reactions feel, well, kind of out of proportion to whatever triggered them. Irrational outbursts, maybe.
That's quite a list. And it sounds pretty serious. The document even mentions the broader societal impact of stress, doesn't it?
Yes, it briefly touches on the concerning rise in overall stress levels and, sadly, the growing number of cases that actually require medical intervention. It also points to research suggesting a link between chronic stress and potentially reduced life expectancy, which really underlines why addressing this is so important.
Wow. Okay. So the goal here isn't just about feeling a bit better temporarily. It's about regaining a sense of control, really, not feeling so overwhelmed by everything.
Exactly. It's about agency. By pinpointing those triggers and connecting the dots between the symptoms, physical and emotional, and the underlying stress, then we can start applying strategies that actually target the root causes.
And the document outlines some pretty fundamental evidence-based approaches for that.
It does. It highlights the basics, things we often hear about, like a balanced diet, getting regular physical activity, and even making conscious choices about your physical environment.
Okay.
But it also stresses, importantly, the need to step back and look at the whole picture, what's contributing overall, rather than just focusing on isolated stressful events.
All right. So we've hopefully started identifying some sources. Now, what can we actively do to sort of dial down that feeling of being overwhelmed when it hits? The document talks about easing tension.
Yes, this is a really crucial strategy because, let's be honest, the idea of completely eliminating all stressors from life.
Yeah. Sounds nice, but not very realistic.
Exactly. The document wisely points out it's often just not practical. So learning to actively ease the tension that stress creates becomes a vital skill.
Okay, and it breaks this down into three key areas. Let's start with one that often gets pushed aside. Just simple rest.
Yes, rest is absolutely foundational. The document really emphasizes that giving your body and mind enough proper rest is essential for rejuvenation. It allows you to function more effectively, build resilience, basically handle the demands, mental and physical, that life throws at you. Think of it like hitting your internal reset button.
Makes total sense.
Yep.
I mean, we all know how much harder even small things feel when we're just exhausted.
Absolutely.
So what about relaxation techniques?
Relaxation is more about the active practice of calming your mind and body. The document encourages you to explore different methods, find what resonates with you, and importantly, find things that can be applied in different situations. So maybe longer sessions when you have time in a peaceful place, but also quick, maybe discrete techniques you can use right in the middle of a busy or stressful day. Having that toolkit is key.
So it's about building a personal repertoire of ways to find calm, basically.
Exactly right. And the third piece of this tension easing puzzle, according to the document, is pacing oneself.
Pacing. Okay, that sounds like it's more about prevention.
Yeah.
Preventing that feeling of being swamped before it even starts.
You've got it. The document highlights that a huge chunk of stress cases really stem from simply feeling overwhelmed, just too much, too fast.
Yeah.
So by managing our workload better, setting more realistic expectations, breaking down big tasks into smaller steps, we can often prevent those situations from spiraling out of control and triggering that big stress response. It's about working smarter,
Yeah.
not just harder and harder.
Right. Okay, so we're addressing the physical tension, the feeling of overwhelm.
Mhm.
But what about that constant mental noise? The whirlwind in our heads that often comes with stress? The document talks about needing a quiet mind.
Yeah, a busy, anxious mind can be a major, major driver of stress. The document introduces the practice of deliberately quieting the mind, and it presents meditation as a particularly effective tool for this, for reducing stress and cultivating a more peaceful inner state.
Meditation. It comes up a lot, but I think for some people it can feel a bit inaccessible or maybe intimidating. What specific type does the document mention?
It specifically talks about a technique it calls get quiet meditation. And the main goal here is really to gain conscious control over your thinking process, to quiet down that mental chatter using specific, focused techniques.
Okay, so walk me through the basic idea. How does that get quiet thing work?
Well, the core principle is to consciously shift your focus away from the stressors, away from the problems that are causing the anxiety,
Mm.
and instead you intentionally redirect your attention toward calming things. Maybe visualizing a peaceful scene, focusing on a pleasant physical feeling, or even just repeating a soothing word or phrase silently to yourself.
So it's like deliberately changing the channel in your head, tuning out the noise and tuning into something calmer.
That's a fantastic way to put it, yeah. The document also mentions the role of your inner voice in this process, how it can help your body adapt to more positive thought patterns, and, crucially, learn to let go of those persistent worries.
And what's the payoff? What's the ultimate benefit of getting to this quieter state of mind?
The document suggests that a calmed mind can really unlock a sense of positive energy and rejuvenation, but it's also realistic. It notes that achieving this kind of mental control takes consistent, dedicated practice. It's definitely a skill you develop over time.
Right, not an overnight fix.
Not at all. But the potential rewards in terms of stress reduction are significant.
Okay. Now, let's maybe zoom in on some specific environments where stress often really takes hold. First up, the workplace. The document offers some pretty practical strategies here.
It does. And it starts by suggesting that a lot of the stress we feel at work is actually linked to underlying anxiety. So addressing those root causes can significantly improve our ability to adapt and just cope better with the day-to-day demands of the job.
And one of the very first pieces of advice might make a few people listening groan, giving up coffee.
Yes, that one often gets a reaction. The document makes a direct link between caffeine, for some people, and heightened stress. It suggests coffee can amplify hyperactivity, overstimulate the adrenal system.
Puts you on edge.
Exactly, puts your brain into overdrive, potentially making feelings of stress and anxiety worse.
Definitely food for thought for those of us relying on that morning cup or three. What other actionable steps does it recommend for work stress?
Getting better organized is another key one. While the immediate payoff of tidying your desk might not seem huge,
Right.
the document highlights that incorporating good organizational habits into your workday planning, prioritizing, can lead to a real improvement in your quality of life and significantly reduce that feeling of being constantly overwhelmed by tasks and deadlines.
So a more orderly workflow means a less stressed you? Make sense?
hmm
What about in the moment, during the workday, when you feel that pressure building up?
Yeah, the document advises taking frequent but short breaks just to physically stretch, mentally step away from the work for a few minutes, even just a couple of minutes to breathe deeply, refocus.
Right.
It can make a surprising difference. It also specifically mentions getting some fresh air if you can, that rejuvenating effect.
And it sounds like even basic things like taking proper meal breaks are actually crucial for managing stress, too.
Absolutely. Stopping for lunch, taking those short tea breaks. It gives your mind a vital chance to disconnect from work thoughts, and it lets your body replenish energy and nutrients. Both are really important for building stress resilience throughout the day.
Okay, we've tackled the workplace. Let's shift gears now to the place we ideally find peace: home. But the document acknowledges realistically that home can also be a big source of stress.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have multiple people, often with different needs, wants, expectations, all under one roof. Those dynamics can definitely lead to stress.
Sure can.
But the document emphasizes that if you implement the right strategies, you can significantly reduce stress levels for everyone in the household.
And I'm guessing that magic word organization pops up again here.
It certainly does. Maintaining organization within the home is highlighted again as really critical for creating a smoother daily flow and just a calmer atmosphere overall. When things have a place, when routines are clearer, it just minimizes those little daily friction points that add up to stress.
Makes sense. What about active relaxation techniques we can actually use at home?
The document recommends making a conscious effort to build relaxation into your daily home routine, using methods you find genuinely helpful.
Like what, for example?
Well, it could be things like meditation again, maybe prayer if that resonates, gentle exercises like stretching or yoga, or just focused deep breathing exercises. Anything really that helps you unwind and recharge mentally and physically to better handle whatever the household throws at you.
It also specifically suggests maybe incorporating exercise into your morning routine before the day really gets going.
Yes, starting the day with some form of exercise is presented as a way to build both physical and mental resilience right from the outset. It potentially makes you better equipped to cope with the various stresses that might pop up during the day at home.
And interestingly, it also suggests connecting with others about home-related stress.
Yeah, talking to friends, family, or support groups, people who might be facing similar challenges. Sharing experiences can provide really valuable insights, maybe offer new coping strategies you hadn't thought of.
And just knowing you're not alone.
Exactly. And just knowing you're not alone in dealing with it. Finally, it encourages proactively trying different ways to handle stress at home, rather than just bottling it up or repressing it, which, as it points out, often just increases the stress levels in the long run.
Okay. Moving on to another area where stress can, unfortunately, be a major player, our relationships. The document has some really insightful points on this.
It does. It starts by saying that many conflicts and difficulties in relationships can actually be resolved by addressing the core underlying issues. But crucially, when these core problems are ignored or swept under the rug, they can fester and become a chronic source of stress, creating really unhealthy and damaging dynamics over time.
So tackling the root cause is vital. What's the first big step the document recommends for managing relationship stress?
It emphasizes something quite profound: the importance of accepting that you simply cannot quickly or easily change another person's fundamental nature or behavior.
Oof, that's a big one.
Yeah.
We often spend so much energy trying to mold our partners, don't we?
We do, and the document suggests that this acceptance is really the foundational step towards navigating relationships with significantly less stress. It advises shifting your focus towards how you can cope with the existing situation and recognizing that personal change, your own change, is much more achievable.
It also really underscores the critical role of communication. Clear, open communication.
Absolutely. It makes the blunt but true point that people are not mind readers. Expecting your partner to just intuitively know your unspoken thoughts and feelings, well, it's a recipe for misunderstanding, resentment, and ultimately stress.
Yeah.
So, learning to articulate your own thoughts, feelings, and needs clearly, competently, and respectfully is just essential for a healthy dynamic.
And sometimes, even when we try to talk, things get messy or emotional. The document suggests an interesting technique for gaining perspective.
Yes, it actually recommends taking the time to write down your thoughts and feelings about the relationship. Just for yourself initially, this can be incredibly valuable for self-reflection, for clarifying your own perspective, and sometimes sharing those written thoughts later can improve understanding between partners because it makes things clearer, maybe less emotionally charged than a spontaneous conversation.
Interesting. Finally, the document tackles a really powerful emotion, one that's often tightly wound up with stress: anger. It offers some key, let's call them secrets, for getting control over it.
Yes, it explains that when that underlying stress isn't managed effectively, it can often bubble up and manifest as unexpected, sometimes quite intense, maybe even potentially harmful outbursts of anger.
Okay, so how can we get a handle on that anger in the moment, before it escalates and just creates more stress?
The document highlights a simple but often very effective strategy: taking a time out, literally stepping away from the situation, the conversation, the person that's triggering the anger.
Hmm.
This allows you crucial space to calm down, cool off, and gather your thoughts before you react impulsively.
So it's about creating that physical and emotional buffer zone in the heat of the moment.
Precisely. And once you've regained a bit of composure, a sense of control, you'll be in a much better headspace to address the original issue more rationally, more constructively. You've had time to maybe reconsider the facts and your feelings.
Another really powerful tip it mentions is about being mindful of our words when we're angry.
Yes, learning the art of controlling the tongue, which basically means thinking before you speak when you're feeling heated, is presented as a crucial skill.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, definitely. But anger often leads us to say impulsive things that only worsen the situation, escalate conflict, and increase stress for everyone involved. So, being more deliberate, more mindful with our communication, even when angry, can lead to much better outcomes.
The final secret it mentions for anger is about shifting focus away from the problem.
Yes. Instead of just dwelling on what's making you angry, replaying it in your head, the document advises actively directing your mental energy towards finding solutions. How can this be resolved? What steps can be taken? This proactive, solution-focused approach reduces the tendency to just ruminate on the negative stuff that fuels the anger itself.
We have covered so much ground. I mean, from understanding the basics of the stress response right through to really practical strategies for work, home, relationships, anger. As we start to wrap up this deep dive, the document touches on a crucial final piece: preventing future stress. Looking ahead.
It does, and it addresses a common tendency some people have, maybe without even realizing it, to almost induce stress by constantly worrying, constantly striving for more, always focused on the future, without really enjoying or appreciating the present moment.
Yeah, that feeling of never quite arriving.
Exactly. That lifestyle keeps the mind and body in this perpetual state of low-grade or high-grade worry and stress.
So how do we break free from that kind of cycle, that constant forward-leaning anxiety?
The document suggests adopting a more analytical but less emotionally charged approach to the future, specifically analyzing potential risks, looking ahead, planning proactively, making necessary adjustments, but doing it in a way that allows for smooth progress without being consumed by constant vague anxiety about the unknown.
Okay. And here's a tip that might sound a little strange at first, actually scheduling time to worry.
It does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the thinking is, for people who find it really hard to just switch off worry completely, consciously setting aside a specific limited time each day to address those concerns can actually provide a sense of control.
How so?
By containing the worry within a defined boundary, say 15 minutes after dinner, rather than letting it just bleed into and contaminate the entire day.
It's like creating a designated worry window instead of letting it seep into everything.
Exactly like that. And finally, the document strongly recommends actively replacing those negative, worrisome thoughts. Don't just try to suppress them, but replace them
Replace them with what?
with other activities like repeating positive affirmations or sentences, consciously engaging in positive mental imagery or thoughts. It even references data suggesting this is genuinely effective as a soothing, empowering alternative to just letting the worries run rampant.
So bring this all together then, the big message seems to be that managing stress effectively isn't really about trying to achieve some mythical, completely stress-free life,
Yeah.
because that's probably not realistic for most of us.
That's absolutely right. It's much more about gaining a deeper understanding of where your stress comes from, learning to recognize its signals within yourself, the physical signs, the emotional signs, and then proactively, consciously applying a range of these practical techniques we've talked about.
Right, techniques that cover our personal habits, how we interact with others, how we approach work, home,
Yeah.
the whole picture.
Exactly. That's holistic.
And it feels so important to remember that point you made earlier. While external things definitely contribute to stress, our internal responses, our thoughts, our perceptions, how we frame things, hold immense power in shaping our actual experience of stress.
Immense power. Absolutely. By consciously taking those proactive steps, whether it's prioritizing proper rest, finding relaxation techniques that work for you, cultivating that quieter mind through something like meditation, getting organized, communicating more clearly,
Mhm.
we can build genuine resilience. We can learn to navigate life's inevitable bumps and challenges with, hopefully, a bit more calm and a greater sense of control.
So, as you, listening, go about your day from this point forward, maybe just consider this.
Yeah.
How might consciously incorporating even just one or two of these strategies we've discussed start to reshape your daily experience?
Mhm.
How might it contribute, even in a small way at first, to your overall well-being? Think about which specific area of your life, maybe it is work, maybe it's home, maybe relationships, which area might benefit most right now from a focused effort in applying some of these stress management insights. It really is about taking those first manageable steps toward a more balanced and hopefully less stressful you.